All right, so I want to talk about this very important news that we're getting from AT&T and Verizon. The article is coming from Phone Arena. You can find the link sourced down for you in the description. So this reference here, this update regarding the possibility of tariffs placed on the carriers for devices. So that means AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, etc. If President Trump does go ahead and decide to place tariffs on the cost of goods for these phones and these carriers get hit with it, they're bluntly telling us that customers, you and I, are going to be responsible for whatever that amount comes out to. So there was a couple of statements here. So this is very important because, everyone is getting worried now about tariffs in general, cost of goods in general, the relationships with China, etc. This is going to affect business in many different ways. And for us, the customers that buy phones from carriers, we're going to have to start thinking differently because they're coming out and telling us things are going to get more expensive for us as the company. And that means things are going to get more expensive for you, the customer. Hans Vestberg said a few days ago that, I guess he said this during the carrier's Q1 2025 earnings call, that even though it's hard to predict what will happen, Verizon will not absorb higher phone costs. He says that if the tariff is going to be as high as they say on the handset, we're not planning to cover that in our work. That's just not going to be possible. We will not cover any enormous increase on tariffs on handsets that's ultimately going to hit the consumer in the market. So that means you and me, if you want to buy a device from Verizon, you're going to be paying a lot more now for that device because Verizon's not going to cover it. So that's not going to be a part of the deal. So if it's an additional $100, that is what the customer is going to pay. Now, ultimately, this is probably going to hurt Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile as well, because if things start to get more expensive, carriers may look the other way. Customers may look the other way for additional deals, right? They may choose to buy unlocked phones from black market or gray market or Amazon, however you want to define it. Wherever customers can find the best deals is where they're going to look. And that's going to leave them with a struggling business. Their earnings are going to get shot down. They're not going to be meeting as much of their goal as they want, which is going to ultimately make them desperate in some shape or form. Now they're going to have to figure out ways to adjust to that, to accommodate the customer, to make it worth their while to stay with them, to even be interested in signing up for these plans. See, a lot of the interest comes from these handsets. Many customers want to get the best deal on the newest phones. So if you want the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, that might be, if Verizon's running a deal with it right now, this could be your reason for going with Verizon. If service is good, everything else is up to par, you may consider trying Verizon out for a while because you want that phone. But if the phone's too expensive because of tariffs, well, you may think otherwise. You may consider going with an MVNO that might offer you a better deal, or you may just, like I said, buy your phone somewhere else. Maybe you can get a better deal on it, unlocked from another source. But these are all questions that we have yet to have answers to because we're not really sure. A couple of weeks ago, I read that Trump wasn't even going to consider putting tariffs on these handsets for carriers. But now, we can't really trust what he says, to be honest. He's kind of, one day he's doing this, one day he's doing that. And there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of panic. And we can't really be certain if this is really how it's going to go down. And, maybe these carriers are just talking a tough talk. And maybe at the end of the day, they're going to realize that they kind of have to work with the customer because forcing all these fees on the customer is probably just not going to work. Even if they feel it's fair because the customer wants the goods, I think ultimately it's still the business's responsibility. I mean, you're buying the goods. You have to pay for these tariffs. The customer shouldn't have to pay for them. You need to work that into your budget. But they're saying, well, we just simply couldn't do that. There wouldn't be enough profit. So this is going to be a real interesting thing to sit back and watch, because I think it's going to push a lot of customers away if these phones are not, if there's not enough deal or value in it. I don't see why customers are there's going to be a lot of lost potential, meaning that any customers that were going there for these phones may consider going to other options because the deals aren't there. The plans in itself are not always that appealing. Many go for the phones. They want the newest iPhone, the newest Samsung, the newest Pixel. And I think many of you agree that if Verizon decides to jack up prices on handsets, you're probably going to go to an MVNO. You're probably going to go to Total. You're probably going to go to Visible, because if there's no real deals for you with Verizon and you're getting Verizon service, other than, priority data, which Total is giving priority data, Visible is giving priority data. Like, let's face it, really all the carriers have now, the big three, is handsets. Better deals on handsets. Visible's handset deals are trash. Like I'll be perfectly honest, I've been checking handsets on their sites for years, and I rarely ever see a good deal. I think I got one phone like 4 years ago for like $100. It was an old LG. That was a steal at the time. Otherwise, their phones are very expensive, and they're not knocking them down, and there's no real good deals there. So this is what we're looking at here. And then, AT&T confirmed it as well. We had John Stankey said that at least they're willing to kind of compromise. A better answer, I think, for the people than what Vestberg said. I mean, at least AT&T, they're saying, they're aware of the tariffs, that they'll be applied to phones sold in the US, and it will, of course, be passed to the customers. But they said that they will have to find new ways to make the price increase digestible for customers. So at least, obviously he's admitting that you'll be responsible, I'll be responsible for the tariffs as well, but they'll find ways to make it a little bit easier for us to tolerate. So maybe they'll discount some of the plans somehow. Maybe they'll offer more perks or benefits to the plans. See, at least if they can kind of offset it that way, then maybe customers might be okay with it. Like if you're throwing in more hotspot, if you're throwing in more priority data, you're throwing in some streaming services. So really you're paying more for the handsets, but you're kind of getting it back in your service. Then that might be something that customers might agree to. They might be willing to meet halfway, since they want the phone, since they like the carrier, since they want the service. That is more of like a business approach, other than just the answer like that we got from Vesper. Like, we simply just can't handle that. The customer will be responsible. So I think that was an unprofessional answer in my opinion. But ultimately, I think at the end of the day, they're gonna have to meet us halfway if they want if they want our business, because customers aren't just gonna pay out of their rear end to have that service when there's a lot more options out there now. And I don't think, this could ultimately affect the MVNOs, where maybe they start to dumb those plans down so that we're forced to use postpaid, prepaid. But I don't think that'll happen. But, anything is possible, I guess. So interesting stuff here nonetheless. But yeah, I mean, it's a mess. We're living in a unforeseen situation here where we're just not really sure how this is going to shake up the market. But obviously it's not really good. So we'll have to see. As always, thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. If you have any questions for me, feel free to comment down below in the comment section, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye for now.